I spent the past 2 weeks working on some new concept art for the webcomic I'm creating. If this is the first of these videos you're watching, I'm making a sort of pilot episode for a fantasy comic about magic, pirates, monsters, and tropical jungles. You're all caught up now. This week, I wanted to create a few plant concept ideas, so I started as I always do, by gathering references.
Let's do things differently this time. Like, so differently.
If you've seen my other videos, by now you know how this part goes. I started on Google, just looking for jungle trees, fruit and plants to use as inspiration. I picked out a couple of pieces of art to help with stylization, ran into AI art everywhere I looked, fell down a couple of rabbit holes about crystal formation and tree species, looked up a random noun generator, more on that in a minute, watched a tutorial on painting trees, and gathered everything in a pure ref file. With my references gathered, I headed to Photoshop and took mercy on my eyes by making the canvas grey. Then I got to the concept art. Digitally painting trees is hard, so one of the most popular, fastest, and aesthetically pleasing ways to do it is by creating a leaf shape and turning it into a brush. There are a million tutorials on how to do this out there, so I won't go into detail here, but let me know if you want me to. I knew I'd need to draw a lot of palm trees. It's a tropical island after all. Only problem is, this leaf brush method doesn't work for palm trees, so I'd need to figure out another way. The palm tree leaves I was looking at all have these small leaves coming off of the branches which taper off at the end and droop down due to gravity. Maybe I'm just lazy, but I really couldn't be bothered to draw each individual one, so I tried to figure out a shortcut by making a palm leaf shape and trying to craft a brush that could do what I needed it to do. I couldn't make it do what I needed it to do. I got close, but it just wasn't working, so I went back to the drawing board after about an hour of trying. I took a look at the leaf shapes and tried to see if I could quickly draw the leaves without making it look too rushed. Using a brush that tapers at the end was useful here. I wasn't really happy with the results, but they'd have to do until I came up with a better solution. With my number one issue technically fixed, I moved on to the fun part, designing some other plants for the jungle. I decided to introduce a kind of random prompt element to this process by looking up a random noun generator and picking some words I thought were interesting. One of the random nouns I generated was feather, so I looked up some images of feathers, wondering about how I could use it for a plant idea. Eventually, I came across this image, which sparked an idea for me, a sort of fruit that blooms from within the center of a flower. It's been done before, but it seemed like a cool idea for a unique enough silhouette. I drew up 4 silhouettes inspired by this feather idea, including 2 others so they didn't all look the same. Then I moved on to the next prompt. Another random noun was mathematics. It didn't take long for me to think of, admittedly, the most cliche way that math and art tend to intersect. The golden ratio, which is connected to the Fibonacci sequence. I'm gonna be honest, I never really understood how these two things were connected, so I did a bit of research. So for anyone who's like me and doesn't know or can't remember maths class, the Fibonacci sequence is basically a sequence of numbers where each number is a sum of the 2 previous ones. So it goes 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, etc. The golden ratio basically puts these numbers into a kind of visual method, where a square starts small, equal to 1 in the ratio, and neatly lines up with the larger square placed next to it. Like this. The golden spiral, which you probably see more of when people talk about the golden ratio, is the through line that follows the points where each of these squares meet each other at the edges. Sorry if this isn't making any sense, I'm not the best at explaining this stuff. My main point is that this inspired the last tree in this set of silhouettes. It's not drawn accurately, but it takes the concept of the Fibonacci sequence to determine the length and number of branches it has, which all curl in a spiral at their ends because that felt appropriate. Nestling wasn't a word I'd heard of before, but it's basically a newborn baby bird, and looking up some images gave me some immediate ideas for how I could turn it into a plant. Nestlings have pretty big beaks and they sort of look like petals, so I just sort of took that shape and ran with it, trying to create some 2-petal plants that still resembled a plant while keeping the beak-like shape. I also drew a literal nest growing out of the ground, which is basically just a bunch of curved sticks. I didn't like it that much, but my mum called me on FaceTime as I was drawing it and she liked it, so I don't know, maybe you can let me know what you think of it. I took a bit of an art detour after this to draw some crystals. The magic in my world can manifest via different crystals, so I wanted to explore what each different type of magic might look like if you just found them growing out in the wild in these crystals. I don't want to overwhelm you with the information about the different kinds of magic in this world yet, so I'm not really going to explain why I made some of the choices I did here. Another noun I got randomly was router, and while I didn't think I could make something organic looking out of the shape of an actual router, I did wonder about how the design of a motherboard could make for a unique looking bark texture. So I kept this one in mind as I drew the silhouettes of some trees. I came back after a break to paint over them, keeping in mind what I wanted thematically for this jungle. Like a regular jungle or rainforest, I was hoping for the palette to be mostly earthy colours, like greens and browns, with bright pops of saturated colour which gives it a magical and somewhat mystical feel. I'm a big fan of colour palettes that are desaturated or dark with a bright pop of accent colour. One of my favourite games, Control, does this super well. Even though it's a completely different genre, my goal is for the colour of magic to feel just as attention-grabbing and imposing as the red accents in the world of Control do. When it came to painting, I just wanted to get the ideas down. I wasn't too concerned with rendering or perfection, and I'm pretty happy with how most designs ended up. I won't use them all, but now I have some unique plants to place in the backgrounds or foreground of the comic where it feels necessary. I had planned to design some animals too, but I couldn't fit it into the week. As of writing the script though, I have already started on animal designs, so you shouldn't have to wait too long for that video. That wraps up everything for this video, so if you're interested in seeing more, you can subscribe or watch the other videos before this one. I've made a playlist now. Either way, it shouldn't be more than 2 weeks before the next video, so I'll see you then. Bye!